Again, employees can't fix what they don't know is broken, so if they don't know they're not meeting expectations, how are they going to meet them? And it's been proven study after study, employees who receive regular feedback, whether it's good or bad, are happier and perform better. Just like children behave better if they have expectations, consequences, and rewards.
Jessica, if you had to fire an employee, is there a timeline where they can come back after you, or is there no?
Yeah, and every statute has a different statute of limitations, so it depends on what their complaint is. But it can be up to well, FMLA is 2 years. Most of the discrimination stuff is either 6 months or a year, depending on if it's state or federal. And some have longer breach of contract type claims are like 6 years. So it depends. All right, so happy employees performing better equals increased sales and customer service for you. So you need to establish a structure, figure out how often you're going to do it. If you're going to do it more for brand new employees, more frequently. Are you going to do it the same time of year for everyone? Or are you going to do it spread across based on anniversary dates? Who's going to do the evaluations? And do you have a system in place? And if not, how are you going to get a system in place? Tips would be to use objective, measurable criteria as often as possible. Make sure that areas for improvement are clearly defined and give concrete examples of anything that the employee has done wrong. If they were rude you heard them swear at a customer on the phone, then give that example. Define what they need to do to improve, and consider if you're having trouble developing criteria, that's something we do a lot, help turn a bunch of subjective, unmeasurable stuff like team player into something much more objective and measurable. And then managers should really get training on how to conduct these in an efficient way. Lastly, terminations should be planned in advance. Most companies make a snap decision to terminate somebody as a bad idea. Obviously, if there's an assault, somebody shows up to work drunk, that's a different situation. You're going to fire them on the spot, I hope. But most of the time, if it's performance-based, attendance-based, things like that, should be planned in advance. It's really critical that you've documented the reason they're being terminated. This will be critical in fighting unemployment claims, as well as if they file any charges against you. Make sure you prepare their final paycheck so that they can walk out with that. Their last day in Minnesota, they're entitled to their final paycheck, including any unused vacation or PTO, within 24 hours. So if you don't plan this in advance, there's no way you're going to get them that check on time. Plan in advance. Provide them with a written explanation for their termination. They are entitled to that. So it's just easier to give it off the bat instead of waiting for them to demand it. And if they're not surprised by it, they're much less likely to file a claim. If they know you've had issues with their performance, they've had bad performance evaluations, and then they get fired for that same thing, they're not going to be surprised, probably not going to file a claim. If something comes out of the blue, and they're like, I didn't know that was a problem, that's going to get their brain going, and they're going to be more likely to file a claim. And call an employment attorney if you have questions or concerns about terminating someone. So in summary, planning ahead is critical to the success of your business, especially when it comes to hiring employees. Make sure you have written job descriptions, employee handbooks, performance evaluation system, and it's always easier to get this stuff done ahead of time before you hire the employee. You think you're busy and don't have time now? Wait till you have employees. Just like getting stuff done before you have children, get the nursery done before they're born, right? Because when are you going to do it after? Same kind of thing. It's never too late, but it's always easier up front. Clear expectations plus regular performance feedback equals happy employees, equals more sales, better customer service, equals more for your bottom line. So a lot of people think of HR as costing money, but really, in the long term, it really does make you money. And think about whether you have the ability, willingness, and time to do all of this work yourself, or if it's better for you to hire a professional so you can focus on sales or whatever you need to focus on as a business. Questions?
Are those things required?
Job descriptions and performance evaluations, they're not required by law. Okay. 90% of the time, that's what will save you if somebody files a claim against you or contests unemployment. This is what's going to save you. And it'll also help the productivity of the employees while they're there. Yes.
I want you to go back to the social media.
Yep.
Obviously, people on LinkedIn are posting their resume.
Yep.
A lot of people are searching for people on LinkedIn. So I can read their LinkedIn, but then I can't use it during an interview? I
have no issues really with LinkedIn. Where I get concerns is with the Facebook stuff. You go on their Facebook page and find out they're a single mom of 3 kids, and you make a decision not to hire them. They may perceive it's because you're one of the many employees who doesn't want to deal with daycare issues, and say, well, that's a violation of the law to make a decision based on that. So that's where the Facebooks get very,
Wouldn't
very.
You want to know if they're dissing your company or dissing that industry for Facebook comments? LinkedIn. I looked up some prospective people on LinkedIn. commit spelling errors.
Yeah.
I mean,
Well, that's a legitimate. If I'm hiring and they have typos on the resume, I can toss it.
right.
Because that's a pet peeve of mine.
I brought that up because I read about this company that actually, bigger companies are hiring to peruse all social
Right.
media sites to get feedback. Are they using this, making disparaging comments against someone else? These are real personal, go to the personal character. But
I would say not when you're in a hiring process. I think it's fine to check their LinkedIn page because that's going to typically be more professional information. This is one of the many, many areas where the law hasn't cut up to the technology.
Right.
I don't ever want my clients to be that test case that gets burned
Okay.
and says, oh, well, I didn't know I couldn't do that. I always verge on the side of complying with the law. I always err on the side of caution. So I always say, check LinkedIn, fine. I would say that's my personal opinion is don't look at Facebook because you may find out what church they go to, you may find out what their age is because it has their birthday, you may find out what their family status is. All of those are protected categories you cannot make a hiring decision based on. So I don't advise that you use Facebook as anything to make a hiring decision. That's my opinion.
you said what? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. See if I can word this properly. Let's say we're all in business from here until the next 10 years. And people sitting here are saying, well, maybe I'm just going to forego that. Do you kind of have a percentage of how many of us might get a claim if we don't do that? I mean...
If you don't do this stuff, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely not a question of if. The SFM guy brought some stats regarding EPLI, Employment Practices Liability Insurance. I can tell you this because I've been citing these statistics from the EEOC. They're on their website every year. Since the economy tanked, we've had a dramatic increase in number of discrimination, harassment, retaliation complaints. And what the hot button issue kind of varies based on what exactly is going. Like after 9/11, we had a huge uptick in religious discrimination because Muslims were being severely harassed in the workplace, things like that. But they just keep going up and up and up and up and up and up. So this stuff is not going away. It's a question of when, not a question of if you get burned. Yes.
And I apologize if this is something everybody in the room knows about. Can you just talk a little bit more about the not unemployment, well, filing for unemployment, and if you fire somebody, you have to pay them, or if it's grounds, or I guess I don't get that.
Okay, well, we talk a lot about this in our management training that we do, much more in depth. But in general, if somebody's fired, they're going to get unemployment. So if you don't want them to collect unemployment, you have to be able to show that they committed misconduct, and I can talk an entire day about what the case law is on what's misconduct and what is not. But in general, it has to be a pretty serious intentional violation of company policy. That's where that handbook comes in. If you don't have that policy written down, you have no leg to stand on.
But presumably, when we hire somebody, we have unemployment insurance, right?
You're required to by law, yes.
So... do you have to pay more?
Yes, your claims will go up.
you?
Unemployment is an insurance program like car insurance. If you get a speeding ticket or get into an accident that's your fault, your premiums go up. Same thing with unemployment.
And who determines whether your rate's going to go up?
The state does.
Oh,
Department of
I
Economic
trust that with my
Development.
money, it's okay.
Dean does, yeah.
So if
The rates will go
somebody
up.
quits of their own, they want to move on to other things, they can't file.
It depends.
Oh, yeah.
Again, they're presumed ineligible if they quit, but there are circumstances in which they can get it. There's all kinds of exceptions to that.
Okay.
So we do go more in depth into this in our training. It's kind of hard to explain in a couple
Sure.
of minutes, but that's the
But that's
rules.
what little bit is sort of helping me set it
Okay.
general.
Okay. Anybody? Yes.
A real class, ABA